Hey folks, Matthew Bivens here, and because you're listening to this show, I know that you want to have the most extraordinary life possible. I'm talking about a life with purpose, where you do meaningful work, have fulfilling relationships, and feel healthy and thriving. But many times, having all of that doesn't seem possible. You have the happy career, but you are lacking in health. You have meaningful relationships, but you feel lost and without purpose. Well, now there's a way for you to see exactly how you stack up in the most important areas of your life so that you can accelerate your self-growth and truly live the life of your dreams. Using my free tool, the Abundance Benchmark, you will gain deep and valuable insight into 6 essential areas of life. It's absolutely free, and you can get yours right now at www.matthewbivens.com. I know this stuff is super important to you, so don't put off your personal development any longer. Grab the free Abundance Benchmark and get to having it all. Welcome to Having It All. My name is Matthew Bivens, and each week I bring you conversations and insights that explore the question, what does having it all mean to you? My goal is to leave you with stories you can relate to and messages you can take action on so that you can create an abundant, loving life. I am so excited that you're here to hang out with me today. Now, let's jump right into this episode. My guest today is Aaron Anastasi. Now, Aaron has quite the resume of accomplishments and experiences in his life. He's an artist and singer with an insanely popular YouTube channel that has over 11.5 million views and 130,000 subscribers. He's also a serial entrepreneur with a number of internationally recognized businesses, including the Superior Singing Method. He's a success coach and author, recently publishing his new book, The Voice of Your Dreams, which we'll get to a little bit later on in the conversation. And he has a master's from Princeton Theological Seminary, and he's known to shred down mountains in Colorado and scale glaciers in Bolivia. Dude, it seems like you have done it all. But above all that, Aaron is a guy who uses his gifts and talents to create value and give back to others. And I'm very excited to go in with Aaron on today's show. So Aaron, how are you being today?
Matthew, first of all, thanks for asking how I'm being and not how I'm doing. That's brilliant. I'm being great. I'm doing great and I'm being great. I'm really excited about our conversation, and I expect great things and hope to provide value for all the listeners and for both of us. Shoot.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I think that you and I will get a lot out of the conversation, and then for you listening out there, I know that you're gonna have some powerful takeaways. And the being versus doing thing. It's actually something I started asking my guests when I first started this show because, we're all so caught up in doing that we forget the beingness and all of it. And so when I was doing my research on you and just getting to know you a little bit more, I watched that video that you have on your book site, and you talk about be versus do. And so I'm excited to get into that with you.
Yeah, man. I think everything comes from that point and flows out of it. So I look forward to talking however you want to talk about it for sure.
Cool. Well, where I want to kick things off is, I mentioned a lot of things in the intro, and I definitely want to get into your life story a little bit and just how it's gone in so many different directions. But first, I want to get to know you more right now. So can you tell me and the listeners a little bit more about you and some of the roles that you currently play?
Some of the roles I currently play, yeah. So you mentioned Superior Singing Method. That's an online singing lesson program. Love doing that, and the YouTube channel is a big part of that. And of course, you mentioned the book, and that's going on. What other than that, right now I've been kind of shifting toward more acting and filmmaking over the past like 3 to 5 years. But did this book in the meantime, and still do the singing site. But just love coaching people, love doing all that stuff. But acting is this kind of secret passion that I've had since I was a kid that I denied for a long time because I was too scared. I had all my own limiting voices and negative self-talk about how I'm too old to pursue that and it'll never work out and it's too hard to, I had all those negative negative voices that kept me believing those and living in that lie for a long time. So just over the past 3 to 5 years, I've been spending, I mean, literally, probably now I probably spend 30 hours a week in class or rehearsal or auditions or on set. So that's a big part of now. And I've got a wife who live in LA. My wife is the absolute love and just the pinnacle of my life. So that's a little bit about what's going on.
Oh, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. I love the fact that it sounds like you're really just going after what moves you, what you're passionate about. And, like the title of the book, The Voice of Your Dreams, just going after that dream of yours. And creativity sounds like a big thing for you.
Creativity is massive for me. I I remember and this is kind of goes to both things you're just saying, but I remember my mom growing up, she always said, "Hey, pursue your passion, pursue your dreams, pursue, whatever creative endeavors you want to do." And I know that's a little bit kind of cliche nowadays. We hear that, but back then, like, it's what I grew up with, and it's what I believed, and then what I've always done, and what I continue to do. And sometimes it's very heartbreaking, and other times it's exhilarating, but the whole time it brings me to life.
Oh, that's awesome, man. I mean, you mentioned it's a little cliche, and I guess, yeah, because we do hear it all the time. But I mean, what else? What else is there really? I mean, you can go and just do the things and slug along, or you can really be bold and go for it. And it sounds like you've done that.
Yeah, man. In a lot of ways I have, and in a lot of ways I've shrunk back, and
Mm.
yeah, I'm committed in my life at this point to continue to pursue my dream, whatever that passion is, and push through that fear. I just think that the things that keep us from that are our various fears and our limiting voices, and that when I notice when I push into my fears, whatever I fear most, if I push into that, I find it's usually the biggest breakthrough for me, and then not just me, but my family and those around me. As I'm doing what inspires me, even though I'm afraid, it encourages and inspires people, hopefully, to do what inspires them, even though they're afraid, and ultimately, reach their dreams and do what inspires them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm happy you said that, and I'm a big believer of the fact that, you and I can have this conversation, and, we can get into the breakdowns and the breakthroughs that we've had, and it can be between us, but the third party, the person out there listening, can also have a breakthrough thanks to what you and I share. And I think that's awesome you said that, and it's just a powerful reality of watching somebody be bold in life. You can experience that boldness, and you can experience the breakthroughs with them.
Yeah, I noticed for me, like, even just recently, like, I've spent a lot of time on my why. Over the years I have, but even more recently, like, why do I do the things that I do? Like, why do I, like, right now, the big, all the other stuff that I do with the book and the coaching and the singing side, all that is, I love that. It's super fun, and I'm still passionate about it. And there's still some fear surrounding that, but my biggest fear is this acting thing. So, and I keep falling on my face over and over and over again and being humbled over and over again. And I'm like, why do I do this? And when I kind of shuck it down to the cob, a phrase I learned when I was living in Atlanta, when I shuck it down to the cob, I bring it down to, like, what it really is. I've got about probably 10 things that really motivate me, a part of my why, but one of the ones at the top is this thing that we're talking about. I love the idea of inspiring people, and if I'm not continuing to fail, and if I'm not continuing to pursue the things that I'm most afraid to pursue and want to, that are part of that deepest desire inside my heart, I feel like I can no longer do what I do. I can no longer coach. Of course I could, but I can no longer write the books. I'm not in that place of continuing to push forward to that next thing. And it's harder. I believe that it would be harder for me to inspire people, and inspiring people is so important to me that it's one of the things that really drives me in those dark moments that I want to quit.
So it sounds like what I heard was that if you aren't being your true authentic self, if you aren't really going for it, how can you then coach other people on how to do that?
I think that because
Yeah.
you know, I've had enough success. I make plenty of money. It's not about that for me anymore. It's about doing the thing that scares me and what I'm most passionate about. So I wake up every day and I have this thing in the pit of my stomach of, like, a little bit of excited anxiety of, like, oh, how's it going to go today? It's that being alive continually is what continues to drive me, and the motivating others is a big part of that as well.
Oh, that's powerful. And that's real. I mean, even if you aren't a coach, right? For you listening, even if you're not a coach, like there are people who are watching you, there are people who are taking cues from you, and there are people who are being inspired by you. And they can be inspired to play for their greatness, or they can be inspired to play smaller just based off of who you're being. So, Aaron, I think it's
So,
awesome that you recognize that in yourself.
oh, thanks, man. And I would even say that we're all coaches. We're all coaching somebody. We're all leading somebody,
Yeah,
whether we realize it or not.
yeah, yeah. So let's jog back to fear a little bit. You mentioned one of the fears you're working on right now has to do with the acting. Tell me about that.
Yeah, man. I'm taking this class right now. So I've been studying acting like I did a lot when I was a kid and did a lot of theater and musical type theater as a kid, and then it kind of shifted to music for many, many, many years, and I put out a ton of records and did all the touring thing and all that stuff, and it was just music. But then in the past 5 years, as I'd mentioned, started studying again. So I've, a certain level, and I've gotten a certain amount of accolades from famous teachers and coaches and actors and stuff along the way, to where I feel like my work is getting better and my work is pretty decent. But I'm in this class right now where it's one more level of this technique that I'm learning, that it's just I'm not getting it. I'm in class and the people in my class are getting it and I'm not getting it. And I cognitively understand it, but I'm having such a difficult time getting it in my body and getting it to come out. Now, part of me is confident that I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna get it. It's just gonna take some time, and that's okay. But there's also a part of me that fights. It's these limiting voices telling me you're not made for this. There's something inherently wrong with you that you'll never get this. You don't have what it takes. Just give up. Why are you wasting your time? It's all those voices
Mm.
that those are the where the fear comes from. I battle that. So that's why a lot of this like mindset work and this mindfulness and the book that I wrote and the coaching that I do, all this stuff in a big way, is because it's stuff that I've struggled with so much in my life, that you end up teaching the things that you need and want to learn.
Yeah, yeah, because those are the things I guess you end up putting the reps in to address.
Exactly. And yeah, so if it comes to me, I could teach best the things that I struggled with the most, which is why the teaching the singing thing is fun
Mm.
for me, because I was such a terrible singer and I built a singing voice. And so I'm like, hey, everybody who can't sing, I promise you I was worse. And here's how you do it. Like, I learned the steps. If I was just born, and I don't think anybody's born a great singer, but if I was born with, say, more talent, or if it just came easier for me, I wouldn't really know how to teach people because I didn't go through the steps.
Hmm. I love how you said that. That's very cool. So let me ask you on the fear topic. When those fears, like when you have those limiting beliefs, those thoughts, that self talk in your head, like how does that fear actually manifest itself within you?
Yeah. So I was just journaling about this like 2 days ago. So it manifests itself in, gosh, I mean, even that day in class, this is just a few days ago. So that day in class, I realized that when the fear rises up and I start believing these limiting voices, what I go to, and I'm committed to shifting this, but what I go to even now is a lot of shame, a lot of self flag. What's the word? Flagellation. There's like one
Yeah,
that
yeah,
means
self
like,
flagellation.
yeah. I go into that mode, and when I get into like beating myself up, and that's like you don't have what it takes and there's something wrong with you, like that kind of stuff, then I look for some type of reprieve. I look for some vehicle to help soothe me in that moment. And so there I have a lot of different options that I could choose. It could be eat food, or it could be watch television, or it could be ice cream, or all these different things that I want to self-soothe to get rid of that. Or I can go to inquiry, which I'm more committed to these days. Go to inquiry and really take a look at those thoughts. So this one, and particularly as that started manifesting, I started feeling really terrible about myself, and just wanting to quit acting and quit, get out of this tension of like where I am now and where I want to be. Because when we're pursuing a dream, we'll always live in the middle of that tension between current reality and where our vision is. And a lot of times I just want to pull out of that. But so what I did this time is that journaling, and doing that really hardcore inquiry of finding out what's really true and what are the thoughts that are what are the thoughts that are just occurring to me as reality that I think are true, but are actually just thoughts and lies that I'm believing, and really
Mm.
exposing them for what they are. And here's one of the key things. I know I'm being a little verbose here, but the thing that I find the most powerful about inquiry is when I can find out how I'm being complicit in keeping this limiting voice alive. Like, why, if I have 50,000 thoughts that go through my mind in one day, why would I keep holding on to this thought? And
Yeah.
there's some reason that I'm doing it on purpose that makes me feel good. So, I find, oh, if I don't believe I can do it, then I get to quit. I get to not, have this feeling of looking like a failure. I get to not do the hard work. I get to not look like, there's all these things I'm getting out of it. So I have to get really clear about, oh, I'm doing this on purpose, but what would I be giving up if I continue to live in that and balance that inquiry out?
Hmm. It's powerful you say it like that because you're a big guy on being, right? Like on who you are being, and you just mentioned living in it. So it makes me think like what part of you, like maybe why are you holding on to those thoughts of not being worthy enough for your dreams to manifest the way that you want them? And it's relatable to all of us, I think, like holding on to those beliefs that I call them codes, those codes that we might take on from other people. It might be somebody else's code. It might be something somebody taught us, and we hold on to it, and then we be that, and just really examining that whole reality of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I find that for me it's the shoulds that
Yeah.
really affect me. If I think I should be getting this particular acting technique down more quickly because I have had some successes in my life and I've done some things that I'm proud of, I should be getting this quicker because of this. Therefore, I'm stupid, or therefore, the shoulds are what really it's where my inquiry usually starts. Oh, really? Should I? Is that true that I should? And then really going down that path of inquiry.
Mm. Yeah, don't shit on me, right?
Don't shit all over yourself.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the breakdown moment that you've had, that you shared a little bit, and you mentioned it briefly, and then I know you shared on your website, but it was that moment where a lot of the feelings that you might be having around your acting currently, you had. You mentioned feeling stuck and depressed and frustrated and angry. So can you tell me and talk to us about that breakdown moment?
Yeah, that was maybe, gosh, I don't know how many years ago, 7-ish, 8 years ago or something like that, and I actually hadn't had any. The big thing for me is I hadn't had really any financial success. I was always, I feel like I was always taken care of, and I had the money that I needed and had a lot of great opportunities, but was, uh, was born poor and had this born poor, I was raised in a very, very low income family, and was instilled with a little bit of that poverty mindset of this is all that's possible for me. So fast forward to that moment, a little under a decade ago, and I hadn't created any financial wealth. I had had some experiences, and then also it just started getting the idea of like, I think I want to pursue acting, and I was frustrated and feeling stuck and depressed, and was with my coach in that moment. And this is where kind of the being doing thing started for me, and that's why I preach it so much now, because it was such a radical transformation when I do apply this. So I was telling my coach, "Hey, I'm not getting the results at all that I want. I can't. It just frustrating. I can't seem to like move forward in these areas of dreams and finances." And so that's when he asked me, who do you have to be in order to get the results that you want? And so
Mm.
that was a big change for me. I mean, it was not just the question, because it's a simple question, but that led to reading hundreds of books and being coached and starting this own transformation. And the being for me, the being versus doing, being for me is the idea of what I believe about myself and what I believe about the world around me. So it is this idea of inquiry and starting to see what is really real, because I believe that when we know the truth and we believe the truth, then we have the most amount of freedom. And I was not free because there were a ton of lies that I was believing. So I started systematically unearthing the lies I was believing, and shining truth on them, and all this opportunity started opening up for me. That's when I started making six figures within a year and creating a seven-figure business, and it was married from this stagnant relationship, and was really started pursuing acting and filmmaking, and had some successes down that road as well, all as a result of this kind of shift in my way of being and understanding that.
Oof, that's real. I
It
dig that,
was,
man.
man. It was such a radical change, which is what led me to start coaching, and I started seeing radical changes in them, which led to, like, I've got to write a book because these things really work and they really changed me, and I want this legacy, and I want not just the people I coach, but I want the whole world to understand these concepts, because it's real. It's not a pitch. Like, this stuff works and it can radically change your life, and you really could live an inspiring and inspired life, and you really could do what you love and inspire others in the meantime. So just really passionate about that.
And share one more time what the question was that sparked everything for you.
Yeah, he said, "Who would you have to be in order to get the results that you want?" And I even said, "You mean what would I have to do, right?" Because for me, it was all about working hard and working hard, because at that point I was pretty tenacious as far as hard work, but I found that just hard work has a ceiling, and it's actually a pretty low ceiling until you shift your beliefs, until you shift your way of being and what you believe is possible for you. There is this glass ceiling, but once I started shifting those, the glass ceiling just burst wide open, and a lot of opportunity and possibility opened up in my mind, and then opened up in reality in my world.
That's powerful. And so that's one of the concepts you talk about in your book, correct?
Yeah, yeah. My book is broken into like five sections, and one of the section, it's like 27 chapters or something, but one of the whole sections of the book is, five or six chapters on this concept of being versus doing, and of course goes into a lot more detail and a lot more practical, like exercises and principle type stuff.
Very cool. Well, like I said, we'll have an opportunity for you to let the listeners know like where they can grab the book at the end of the conversation. But I do want to switch gears here for a second, and it actually relates to something that you had said. This show, Having It All stands for Abundant Loving Life, and this show is really all about just turning over the stones and looking at every area of your life and getting into what it really means to be abundant and loving. And so I want to start with abundance, because you did not have an abundance mentality growing up. You said you were raised in a low SES home, income home, and you were hitting your head against that ceiling. So I want you to share with me and the listeners, what does abundance mean to you now?
Yeah, abundance to me is it's it's closer to reality. We live in an abundant world. There's no lack of money, there's no lack of food, there's no lack of love, there's no lack of any of that stuff in the world. It's just a matter of opening up our eyes to seeing it and accepting it. So to me, abundance is it's the truth of what is there, and once we begin to understand that and believe that, we begin to look for it and find it, because what we focus on grows. We all know that. So if I'm focusing on lack, and this isn't enough, and this is hard, and that, my eyes will begin to see only that, and will create only that, and that's the world that I will live in. But if I understand what's more true, and what is absolutely more true, that there's enough for everybody and more and overflowing of that, then I start seeing evidence of that, and then I begin to believe it more, and I begin to create it more. And part of it, the huge part of abundance for me is it, and this is, again, it sounds so cliche, but it just is true, is that as I'm generous with love, as I'm generous with finances, as I'm generous with time, as I'm generous with, relationally, that's when it generates more. My generosity actually generates more love and generates more freedom for me, which to me, having it all, just that, what does like having it all mean, and this abundance and love, all that stuff, to me it comes down to freedom. Like, what I want: time freedom, financial freedom, relational freedom, creative freedom. I want space in my life to be able to love, to be creative, to do the things I love to do. Like, that's what having it all is: freedom in all these areas, which I find usually comes from discipline in all these areas.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And can you remember what your, like, the specific self-talk you had before you shifted over to that abundance mentality? Like, do you remember some of the specific things you kept telling yourself?
Yeah, yeah. You 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 will never have sustained success. I mean,
Mm,
it really was that simple. And that's one that, and for me, the limiting voices are, in my book, I call them rackets, and we may have heard that phrase before, but the, they don't necessarily ever go away completely. The ones that we struggle with now, we get freedom over and we continue to get more and more levels of freedom. And then in times of stress, they kind of rear their ugly head again. But when we do the inquiry, we can actually look at those things with a little more authenticity, make a more authentic decision with more of the information. They don't just occur to us as like, oh, this is true. It's like, no, 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 no. I know what this is trying to do. This is trying to push me towards safety and toward feeling good about myself and toward comfort and all that stuff. But that's fighting against my vision. So I'm going to make a different decision than this feels like would be the right one. That makes sense.
yeah, and I think that's a powerful thing to realize, that the voices never completely go away, because, in my own personal development journey, I wanted those voices to completely go away. So each time the voice would come back, even if it was smaller than before or wasn't as loud as before, I would feel like, well, I'm just not getting this stuff, you know? And so it's I'm happy you said that, because they don't go away, but your relationship towards them can absolutely change.
Yeah, yeah, and that to me goes back to if I can ask myself, what is the payoff for me doing this? Like, what am I getting out of believing in this? And then asking myself, what is it costing me to believe this? And then that I'm living in a bigger world. So it's like, oh, this isn't just true. Here's the battle that's going on. Now I can make an authentic decision with more of the information. So that's the power to me of
Yeah.
inquiry. Sometimes the mind just lets go of it. There are times, where we do the inquiry and then the mind lets go of it for a while. But like you said, sometimes it could surface back around and we need to deal with it again, and that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, and like you just said, there are consequences to holding on to certain beliefs, right? I mean, they're not right or wrong or anything. It's just a result. So you hold on to a certain belief, and a certain result is more likely. So you want a different result, shift the belief.
That's exactly right. It always comes down to the results. What result is this going to lead to? Like there's no bad or good. There's no bad broken. None of that kind of stuff. It's just, what result is this going to lead to? Oh, it's not leading to the result I want. No problem. Let's shift the belief. Let's shift the system. Let's shift the way of being, and move from there to get a different result.
Mm. So you just shared your thoughts on abundance, and now I want to shift into love. So what does love mean to you?
Yeah, love to me comes down to, I actually got my concept of love and never really shifted it that much from a M. Scott Peck, his book The Road Less Traveled. I think it was written in like 1973 or something. But he makes a distinction between love. The first one he talks about is just like the eros kind of love, that's more of like the lust kind of love, where we're like this infatuation. And then he says we don't actually begin loving people until we fall out of love with them and begin to truly love them, which is
Mm,
service. And then what he says, and again, I believe this, is that to love somebody, or love somebody especially, is to do whatever you could do to help them grow, spiritually, whatever that means to you. So spiritually is at the core of who they are, what's going to serve them the most. And sometimes the best way to serve somebody spiritually is to give them a sandwich, and sometimes the best way to serve somebody spiritually is to not give them what they want, but give them what they need. Could be just all down that path. So to me, how could I take somebody's whole being and make them more, and make them better, and make them help them to live a fuller and a freer life? And that same love for myself, and that same love for an animal, or for so that's what love is to me.
that was powerful. I like how you mentioned that having that same love for yourself, and if you can practice that with yourself, then you can surely practice it with other people, is my belief.
No, I totally agree. And if I had, the thing that I've historically struggled with the most is that thing, which is why I'm so aware of it in myself and in other people, and want to love others so much, but don't forget, hey, love yourself, love yourself. I started doing this really silly thing where I it's it's even embarrassing kind of to say, but I'll look in the mirror and I'll spend 2 minutes complimenting me on the things that I'm proud of that I've done, even small things, and just literally look myself in the eye and say these things for 2 minutes, and it really does something to me because I treat other people like this all the time. So
Yeah.
why would I not treat myself this way and just give myself some slacks? Like, dude, chill out.
Yeah.
You don't have to be so perfect. All these things you've done are really good and they've really served humanity, and that's really what you care about. And so, yeah.
No, that's an awesome practice. I do the same thing. I use this tool. It's called the balance chart, and it's just different habits, powerful, healthy habits that I do every day throughout the week, and I give myself points for them. It kind of gamifies the personal development thing.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So some of my habits are self affirmations in the mirror. So I do the same
Ah,
thing. I do it 5 times a
cool.
week. Yeah, and I guarantee that someone out there listening right now, the thought of standing in the mirror, looking at themselves in the eye, and speaking kindly about themselves just almost makes them want to vomit. And I've been there. Like it's freaking uncomfortable at first, but you get used to it, and then you start to really appreciate you and like recognize how badass you are. And it's a really interesting practice and a great way to practice self love.
Yeah. That just brings up something for me is that it understanding how badass you are, people are like, oh no, that's not humility. But to me, humility is understanding what is true about who you are and your position in the world. And part of the truth about you and part of the truth about me and part of the truth about the listener is that we are badasses. And when we deny that, we're actually doing ourselves and the world a disservice, because if we don't believe in our own bigness, that there's so much more in us than we realize, then we will function less and we will end up serving the world more, but we end up serving the world less. And that's not helping anybody. It's not helping us. It's not helping the world. So to me, it's my duty and my privilege to be as powerful and as much of a badass as possible so that I could affect my purpose on this world, to serve this world, to inspire this world to do what inspires them so they could reach their dreams. Like, I can only do that if I believe that I have the power to do that. Otherwise, I'm going to shrink back and nobody wins if I do that.
Oof, absolutely. Absolutely. That's the quotable segment of this conversation so far, what you just said. That was awesome. So getting back into love, if starting as far back as you can remember, what was your relationship to love like? Like, what was that relationship like? Were you open to receiving love? Did you freely love on other people? Did you see people as loving or out to hurt you? What was that relationship like?
Yeah, that's actually an interesting question. I don't know that I've ever really even thought about that question in that way. How did I relate to love? I growing up, I had a very very affectionate family. We're like a big Italian family and very affectionate family. So love to me did have a lot to do with like closeness and affection and spending quality time together. So that kind of became what love is for me. I As far as if I felt like people were out to get me or if people inherently loved me, I to this day, and I think even back then, is I really do believe the best in people, and I see in them a greatness and a beauty, which is, I think, is one of, well, I've been told by my clients, is one of my kind of superpowers as a coach, is that I really do see greatness in other people, and I don't think people are out to hurt me or hurt the world. I think everybody is doing the best they can with the information that they've been given, and
Mm.
so for me, it's just a matter of finding creative ways to motivate them to to get to be thinking the right way of being and doing the right actions that flow out of that, to do the things that are most productive for them and for the world around them. So that's kind of a roundabout sort of way, but I'm processing it as I'm saying it.
No, no, I like how you mentioned people are doing the best they can with what they have. I think that's absolutely true, and something I have to remind myself of for myself as well as other people. If I want to get frustrated at at how somebody else is showing up in life, I just have to remind myself like they're doing the absolute best they can with the tools and the understanding that they currently have, and it
Ye-
helps me to just release some of the judgments or the emotion I might be feeling.
Yeah. As human beings, we tend to personalize things, but it's personalizing it is actually kind of an arrogant thing to do. Like that person's not thinking about you and thinking about how they want to hurt you and how they can
Yeah.
mess up your day. You know, like that's a where I can get pretty easily. But the fact is, they're just doing the best they can with what they with the information that they have in this moment. It doesn't have anything to do with me. It just has to do with them trying to avoid pain and seek pleasure, just like every other human being in the world. And then just on the idea of like that the judgments that we put on other people, for me, if I can remember, I'm 2 to 3 bad decisions away from the worst actions in the world. That helps me. I really do believe that I could 2 to 3 really bad decisions that I'm capable of, that any human being is capable of. I could be in jail, I can be homeless, I could be in the worst place in the world. So to me, there's just no place for judgment when I know that I could be any person that I have any judgments about. I can be them with just a few bad decisions, you know?
That sounds like a way for you to insert some humility around, the whole badass statement, like becoming a badass, and then yeah, but you're also two actions away from hitting, your lowest point, so to speak.
Yeah. And my badassness isn't to build my kingdom, but it's to build the kingdom of others and to build their world and to build them up. My all my badassness is directed towards serving humanity to help them do what inspires them in order that they can reach their dreams. That's what my badass is focused. It's not a self-aggrandization type of thing.
Mm, that's powerful, man. I like that. So
I mean, hopefully, right? And when I'm at the top of my game.
yeah, I mean that's what that sounds like what you're playing for. I mean that's a huge, amazing thing to play for, to really impact humanity on a level like that. So in this show, one of the things that I create this space, and I view the show as a way for people to explore different things that like they just don't explore in other areas. So we've talked about a couple of them already, and one of them is definitely around love and intimacy. And it was interesting as I was preparing for this episode, this conversation with you. I was going through my Facebook feed, which are pretty ominous first words, and I came across an article, and it's from a brand called My Tiny Secrets. You ever heard of them?
I haven't.
So it's this brand is started by a woman named Adina Rivers, and she's like a love and sex guru type of person. And she had an article, and the word caught. There's a word that caught for me, and you'll probably pick it out. It was called "sex magic: How to Manifest Your Dreams Through Orgasm." And I had been reading, the title of your book, and then I saw the word dreams, and I was like, oh, that's pretty interesting. So I clicked through it, and the article was really just about the creative power of sex and orgasm, and how many of us overlook or are simply just oblivious to that power. And it made me think of you as an artist, and you as somebody who is incredibly creative. And so I'm curious, what role, if any, does sex play in your creativity?
What role does sex play in my creativity? Let me think about that. I'm going to tell a story that is probably going to seem totally unrelated, but in my mind it is related. I I've been married for just over 3 years. Just had my 3-year anniversary to a woman I've been with for about 7.5 years, and we both grew up in the church, and we both were taught and learned and then made a choice that we were not going to have intercourse until we got married. And so that's what we did. When we got married, we decided, we decided not to have sex till we got married, and then of course started having sex when we got married. And this it it made sex a little bit weird at first, because there was growing up in the church and having that, it made it feel, not that I ever felt shame when I had sex with my wife, but it made it feel like, is this okay? Like, this is such a weird thing, because I was older. It was later in life. It's not like I got married when I was 18. I was married later on in life. And so here's what I know. So it became more and more normal and more fun, and we figured it out, of course, and all that stuff. And then I noticed that there was a point to where sex to me became and I've only been married 3 years, but sex became like it felt like a little bit of work. Like, of course, I like sex just as much as the next guy, but I am not a selfish lover. So for me, it's like my wife is going to orgasm every single time that we have sex. That's just the way it is.
That's how it's
That's
going to
what
go down.
Yeah, that's how it's gonna go down, and sometimes that takes work because, women are more like a slow cooker and men are more like a microwave, but so there's a little bit of time it takes to do that, and so one thing that we added into our sex life that's been really, really helpful is we introduced the quickie into our sex life. So one time a week, like, we have the sex like we normally do, but at least one time a week, we enter in the quickie, so it doesn't become like a stressful thing for me, like,
Huh.
oh, this is going to take a long time, even though sex is awesome. And our sex life has become a lot better because of it, because I reframed the way I look at it. So the creativity piece for me, that was just a story that I thought would be interesting that I've never told anybody before. But as far as creativity for me, I noticed that when my wife and I, if we don't have sex because she travels and I travel and we do a lot of fun adventurous things, sometimes separate, sometimes together, a couple of weeks could go by and we don't have sex. I find that my creativity is stifled and I feel more stressed out, and I don't really know why until we come together and
Mm.
have sex, and it just releases something inside of me creatively. It like lets me relax a little bit and have that freedom and that space to be more creative. So sex and orgasm to me is amazing and I love it. Also, it's a discipline. It's something that I want in my schedule on a regular basis so I can have continued intimacy with my wife and I can open up space for the greatest amount of creativity.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for my wife and I, we've been married almost 2 years now. The idea of sex and orgasm as a way to create is new, and it's something that I don't remember where we first got the idea, a book or a mentor or something like that. But the idea that orgasm can be used for creative purposes for manifesting, it's that's where the root of this question came from to you, is like, what are your, like, what have you experienced around creativity? And for us, it's something that we are definitely exploring and looking into, and just seeing how sex can be more than simply the physical act between two people, and what else can come out of that. Because one of the beliefs that I believe is that there is just so much amazing, transformational, powerful energy that happens when you come together in that act. And so I'm very interested in how to truly tap into that energy and not just let it be me having an orgasm and then feeling great and then going to sleep.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's a really interesting topic. I honestly just haven't explored it that much. I haven't thought through it a lot, but I love the idea of it.
Well, you as a creative guy like that, I've heard of sex and creativity, and so it was something I was very curious. And for me, to be honest with you, like, this is me being able to ask that question to you is me being bold and challenging some of the fears, that the things that come up to me. I'm like, maybe this dude's gonna not want to talk about it. Maybe he'll hang up the phone. Who knows? And it's that's actually one of the things my wife and I had put out there in one of our lovemaking experiences, like being bold and creating that in our lives, and really just going for it. So it's cool that you were open to receiving that question, and you answered honestly.
Yeah, I feel like sex is in our culture it is a taboo topic, and I think that's not healthy. And the more that we can talk about it and talk about our experience, I think it will help free people up.
Yeah, and it sounds like with you, you also were looking into those limiting beliefs, or those beliefs that you had around sex and it needing to be, all about you making sure that she gets hers, and then, you come second. And it was cool that you inserted something, the quickie act, and it sounds like worked on some of those beliefs as well, so that maybe healed those beliefs and grew in your understanding of what sex is and what it can mean for the two of you, because you are a guy who is really big on examining those limiting beliefs.
Yeah, yeah. So that was a microcosm of of a wider belief of it. It's back to kind of the shame thing of like, I don't deserve this. Other people deserve more than I deserve, and really examining that belief. Yes, I want to be a service to others, and yes, I want to radically and powerfully change people's lives. But also, I matter, and also my
Mm.
needs matter, and also this matters. And the more, like, going back to full circle here, the more I could continue to love myself, the more capacity I'll have. If love is generative, when we give it, it becomes more. The more I give to myself, the more I'll be able to generate for other people.
Mm. I love that belief. If you give, you receive. The more you give, the more you receive. And there's somebody out there who's heard it for the first time right now coming from you, and it'll be interesting to see how they apply that to their lives and what they see, manifest as a result.
Yeah, yeah. Do it intentionally for a week and keep a journal and see what happens. And I promise you, you'll be surprised by the results.
Yeah, well, that'd be awesome. And you know what? If you're listening, I'm gonna go ahead and put this out there. I'm gonna give you my email address. Do that. Do what Aaron just said. Keep a journal for a week and be very intentional about giving. It can be whatever. Maybe it's giving money or giving time or giving love, giving hugs. Be very intentional about giving, and then be aware of what comes back to you. Observe what comes back, and email me. Let me know what happened. You can shoot me an email. I'll give you my Gmail address. It's mattcbivens@gmail.com. MATTC as in cat, Bivens, BIVENS @gmail.com. And I'll put that in the show notes as well, because I'm super curious. People, if you wear on that belief, what happens when you practice it intentionally? Cool. So, Aaron, you touched on this a little bit earlier. I want to ask you this question again. What does having it all mean to you?
Yeah, it comes down to space and freedom in every area of my life. I mean, uh, we can't get that without abundance. We can't get that without love. It's, as you talk about and you're big on. I'm 100% for that. So to me, it's if I'm stressed out in time and everything's jam packed together, and I don't have time for meditation, I don't have time to breathe, I don't have time to smell the flowers, so to speak. Then I'm in time poverty, and same thing with finances and relationship and creativity. If I don't have space and carve out spaces, that space doesn't come. It doesn't just show up. It's intentionally created, and it's created through carving it out. It's created by saying no to things that are good that aren't great. It comes from a certain amount of discipline of not living a life of reacting and people pleasing, but a life of boldness and a life of creating your future and creating the things that you want in the present moment for the future.
Mm, powerful. And now I actually want you to talk about your book, because I think your book is about how they can have it all, how they can tap into it, how they can create their dreams. And so, talk to me about the book.
Yeah, the book, and yeah, all this stuff we're talking about is right, circling around what the book talks about. The
Yeah.
idea for the book is that we all have this voice of our dreams that calls to us. All of us do, but it can be hard to hear and hard to follow when the voices of limitation are shouting so much louder. So it's a lot about these limiting voices. It's a lot of what I call new dreamer principles on how to turn down the volume of those limiting voices and turn up the volume of success in our lives. So it's a way, to me, it's like a manual of how to have it all. And it's the book has this arc. It kind of systematically walks you through in these 5 sections of what to think about and do first, and inquiry, and then kind of walks you through to the end of how to really take your dreams out of the future, take them out of this, oh, I want and I'm longing for and I'm hoping for, because a lot of that could be really victimy. So take it out of the future, because the future doesn't exist, and put it in the present moment, which is the only thing that does exist, and turn it into a project that I could work on for 3 minutes today, 5 minutes today, 10 minutes today, and then become a project manager, not a hoper and a dreamer, what I call an old dreamer versus a new dreamer. A new dreamer is a project manager. An old dreamer says, oh, I wish upon a star. So a lot of it is really practical steps and principles on how to make your dreams literally come true, and then all the limiting voices and all the roadblocks along the way, how to deal with those so you can stay on the path. I talk about in the book, I believe that staying on the path is how we become successful. Day by day, minute by minute is success, staying on the path, but our limiting voices keep derailing us, derailing us, derailing us. So this is like how to stay on the path. And then we just look back and be like, oh, wow, I accomplished all those things. And then even more because I stayed on the path.
I love how you have these projects in the book, and you break things down into projects. And for me, like, that really grounds it, because some of this stuff, the whatever you want to call it, self-help, transformation, personal development, some of this junk is so high up in the clouds that, like, I have a hard freaking time wrapping my mind around it. But I can wrap my mind around a project about 3 minutes a day, 5 minutes a day, around simple habits. So I appreciate that you've done that with the book.
Yeah, every measurable success I've had in my life is because I turned the dream into a project. I mean, this book itself is a primary example. I just said, I don't know how to write a book. I can't write a book, but what I can do is I could write 2 pages a day, 5 days a week, and that's what I did.
There
And
you
so I
go.
just decided, and then eventually I turned around and I had a manuscript. And so yeah, so it's just small little increments of getting a system that works, and then oh, okay, well, I want this thing to be an Amazon. Well, I want it to be a New York Times bestseller, which I'm not quite there yet, but I want it to be an Amazon bestseller. How is that going to happen? I pulled together a launch team of 5 people, and we started unfolding the strategy, and it became an Amazon bestseller. And then we started, okay, I want to get into Barnes and Noble. Now it's in a bunch of Barnes and Noble. It's just like these steps,
Mm.
and it's not a dream. It's not like, oh, I hope this happens. It's like there's a way to make anything happen. If we get stuck in the how, that really, to me, really says that we haven't cranked up the want to enough. We can always figure out how if we're committed enough to it and if we intend to make it come to pass.
So you mentioned a couple places people can go to grab it, but where can people get this book from? And again, the title of the book is The Voice of Your Dreams. Where can they get it from?
Yeah, if you go to thevoiceofyourdreams.com, there I actually have like Amazon. It's on Amazon, of course. There, if you go there and put your email in, and there's a video that can tell you more about the book and what to expect and stuff. But if you put your email in there, I'll send you a 30% off coupon to get it at Amazon as well. And of course, if you live in LA, they're at Barnes and Nobles all over LA, and we're working on the rest of the world, country at least.
Very cool. So I'll put links to that site and the show notes for this episode. And for folks who want to learn more about you, get in touch with you, maybe they want to reach out in some way, or just, get to know you a bit more, how can they do that?
Yeah, my handle is just at Aaron Anastasi, and you can find that Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and then the Voice of Your Dreams actually has its own Facebook page too. And I always do a lot of content surrounding the book, like little motivational posts, and a lot of free content that people seem to like. So you can check that out.
Very cool. Very cool. And as we come to a close here, I want to give you an opportunity to leave myself and the listeners with just one major takeaway, something that they can walk away from this conversation, from your story, from your work, something they can implement into their own lives. So what would your one big takeaway be?
Well, the mantra for my life recently has been believe in your bigness. There's more in you than you realize. This is, maybe just for me because I've struggled with, a lot of my life of believing in myself, but believe in your bigness. There's so much more in you than you realize, and when we begin to understand that there's so much more in us than we realize, that we are capable of so much more than our mind tells us, when we begin to function as if that were true, then all kinds of opportunity and possibility opens up for us, and a new world opens up for us that we can step into, because we live into the future that we see coming toward us, not the future that comes from the past, not the future that we hope and want, but when we create a future and what we believe about ourselves in that future, we live into that future, and there become infinite possibilities.
Mm, I love it, man. Believe in your bigness. That's a powerful takeaway. So, Aaron, last question, man. I have to ask, do you have it all?
I do. I do. And here's I don't have I'm very here's how I explain it to people. I am ambitiously content. So I'm content in the moment because I understand that contentment really does come from me. Contentment comes from every morning when I wake up and going over my gratitude list and understanding what's more true about me. I'm 100% content and unbelievably blessed. So I do absolutely have it all. Also, I love the feeling of being alive and going after something every day. So that's where the ambitious part comes in.
Man, Aaron, thank you. Thank you, man. I can't express my gratitude enough for you coming on the show, making it happen. We had a scheduling thing before. Everyone listening, I had a root canal, and Aaron graciously rescheduled because it was on the same day as my root canal. And you made it out here. And dude, this was a powerful conversation. I appreciate your transparency. I appreciate your insights and everything. So thank you so much, Aaron.
Oh, Matthew, honestly, the pleasure was mine. Seriously.
2 quick things before you leave. First, did you know that the Having It All podcast is a part of the Fireside Network? Yep, we are one of the esteemed shows that calls Fireside Network home. That means if you ever want to listen to a show outside of iTunes or Stitcher or whatever your favorite podcasting app is, all you need to do is visit firesidenetwork.com and under shows, select Having It All. From there, you can access all the episodes, see the show notes, learn about my guests, and more. Second, I am very excited to announce that my brand new website is live. Visit MatthewBivens.com and you can learn more about me, get plugged into an accountability group, and pick up some free content like the Abundance Benchmark. I am all about helping you not only identify what your ideal life looks like, but also helping you on your journey towards it. I want you to experience more abundance and love in your life. So, again, you can find out more information about all of that great stuff at MatthewBivens.com. Thank you once more for listening to the show, and here is to you having it all.